Hello, friends. We are excited for you to join us again on this fourth episode of our Creative Entrepreneurs interview series. Today, we are going to talk to Jo Sweeney. She is a graphic designer from Queensland, Australia, who is in the creative industry for last 2 decades and more than 2 decades actually. And I'm really excited to find out about how it feels to be a first generation Mac user from Jo today. And I'm also interested to share her fascinating story about family branding, which started 60 years ago. You can find out about her boutique branding agency at her website called www.josweeney.com.au. The spelling is JOSWEENEY.com.au. So without further ado, let's meet Jo and ask her about her journey as an entrepreneur, touching upon the defining moments, the challenges, the successes, and her aspiration for its future. Hi, Jo. Thank you for coming on our show. And
Me.
well, before we start asking you about your journey, we would like to know what you do and what's the boutique branding agency that you run from beautiful sunny Queensland.
Well, I suppose you've introduced me quite well. Thank you for that. So I live in Airlie Beach, which is in tropical paradise. So it's a small regional town. Most of my work I do digitally. I do projects in the region I'm in, but I keep the number limited. So I also wear a couple of hats. I'll talk first about my online presence. I co-own a company called wheeliedesigns.com. So we sell bin stickers online. So we've got a few different markets there. So we deal with the home and gift market. So a few years ago, we invented the concept of actually putting bin stickers on bins. So with the cricket stumps, so we've been on Neighbours, all that sort of traditional PR. And now we physically we have a storefront and it's online. So there's no street presence for the business. So we started that 7 years ago. And now we're very much in a pure digital space. So we work primarily home and gift online, which is what I would call self-serve revenue. Then we work one-on-one with businesses, so encouraging small business obviously to have bin billboards, right through to councils and organisations to work with environmental messages. And then we also work with schools. So that's sort of a little business that I don't work in, but I'm involved obviously in its strategy and development and self-expression because anyone that's got a bin, there's so many personalities out there. So that's sort of my mainstream fun side to who I am, that I get to, be a bit quirky. And then separate to that, obviously, I'm a graphic designer by trade, like you spoke at the start. So at the moment, my area of specialty is I work with startup businesses and particularly with people that are real doers. They have to be passionate like I am. They've got to have a bit of energy. And I could do everything from, stakeholder and community engagement through to branding, startup advice on e-commerce. And obviously, 20 years on, my career as a graphic designer has gone through changes from where you go to the level of, junior designer in an agency right through to art director, which is what I've been for a long time, to now moving more into a teaching and consulting space.
Wow.
So I work now with, things like Oz Industry under small business advisory funding. So I get the privilege of teaching a room full of people how to better their digital presence and that sort of stuff. So that's a really interesting change in the, I suppose, journey of a creative entrepreneur when you start to reach, not the tail end of your creative journey, but the transition into, wow, my hard drive of knowledge is so full. I've done so much. And to then get to just, impart it on a room of people, it's a beautiful gift, I think, at the end. So, yeah.
Wow. You must be, I can feel the adrenaline rush, doing so many things.
Yeah.
And meeting so many different people from different walks of life, basically. You must be,
Yeah,
awesome.
So one of the projects I'm working on at the moment is in the area we live, the Whit Sundays. It's like one of the biggest food bowls in Australia. So Australians probably wouldn't even realise there's only 12 farms in Australia that grow tomatoes for the whole country.
Wow.
And 10 of them are in our region. So I'm working under funding with economic development to grow food tourism. So it's such a cultural and community project. So while I'm in the art space, it's a natural progression into communication and sharing and collaboration. Yeah. So it's really cool to see on the ground the impact that, growing something like food tourism means for a region. And creatively for me, it's like a kid in a candy store of ideas. So it's good.
Awesome. So, how did you get started? I read on your blog that you started using Mac as a first generation user in school.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. So I grew up in central Queensland, so in a very sort of country mining town. Always wanted to be an art teacher from as young as I can remember. Painting with yellow was my favourite colour. I wanted to be an art teacher, probably grade one. And then I think we did a personal brand identity project in drawing board graphics, which was obviously an elective, so girls didn't even really do graphics back then, so there was probably only 3 of us in the class. And so I had to do a personal logo, and the next day my graphics teacher came in with an information sheet on the occupation of what a graphic designer was, and he said, "I think this is you." And I read it, and from literally that day forth, every decision I made was around how to become a graphic designer. So I really like, as much as in Emerald where I grew up, I was very privileged that across the road from my house was the Department of Education Mac training room. So that was great, just to grow up in awe, of looking at the Macs all the time. But being a regional country school, 1992, we had one computer that we'd all stand around in awe, and then we'd watch this plotter print these amazing drawing plans, but the year prior to me, or even my year, we were still using pencils to design buildings. Literally. So the whole world pivoted at that time. So my parents wanted me to go to boarding school in the country, take my horse, and I was like, no, I've got to go to the city. So I literally phoned every school and checked their graphics infrastructure, and found that St. Peter's in Brisbane, because it was co-educational, I was able to go to graphics without the sexism of like the all-girls schools back then, and I'm sure it's different now. I would have had to left campus and physically go to the boys' school to undergo a graphics training, which I would have done if I had to, but St. Peter's just led the way, and obviously the teachers at the time were so progressive. We were handed Pantone swatch books from the age of 14, that literally, and obviously not every teacher is going to be that, forward thinking, but it was very much all of my school friends are all doing amazing things because we were given that privilege of, what do you want to be in the creative industries when you grow up? You can be anything, and here's all the current technologies available for you to grow and shine. So whether it's animation, film and television, fine arts, more in film as such in front of the camera or directing, they're all doing really exceptional things because of that. We learnt the technology at the same time as the 40-year-old people were having to adopt it, but we were sponges in that classroom environment where you can just stuff about all day, literally playing with Bezier curves until you learn them and master them. So so it's definitely it was definitely an awesome time to the schooling in itself set me up more with my career, I would say, than the art college I did after schooling, if that makes sense. So it definitely was that platform. So
I can relate to that because I grew up in India, and at 97 the first computers were introduced, and I come from a small town too, and my school was the lucky one to had computers for like 20 computers shared between 80 kids. But at least we got the opportunity to sit down, and we learned DOS coding then. But I guess because of that, the technology understanding or the hunger to learn new technology was created within us. And I can totally understand why I'm still fascinated, and I'm always like learning new things here and there. It starts from there, and I guess it pays off to be an early adopter rather than a slow learner later. For anything. Cool. So of course, with the branding, you are a branding person. You does branding for so many other businesses. How do you feel like your grandfather had a family branding done 60 years ago? What might be his thought process? Was he even aware that it was a branding, or it was just something you do?
No, it's primal, so it's cultural. I've got it here. It lives next to me. So I have it here. So this is the brand.
Wow.
So but obviously it's a cattle brand. So obviously in the farming space, when you buy cattle or you breed cattle, and they wander, your cattle has to be identified. So no different to the language of the hobos that they communicate on railroads to leave messages of hope or fear or safety for their fellow hobos. The cattle brand is almost historic iconography for the family. So So it's something that I suppose I'm the lucky one in my generation. Well, actually, my brother has the same initials. So being a Jack Sweeney was my grandfather. So even though my father, he used the cattle brand, and my uncle to this day, he's Alan Sweeney, but he's still, all his cattle are stamped with the same insignia. So for me, it's more, my father passed away a couple of years ago, so it really pays homage to my whole profession, you know, and I've still got, you would have read my blog, but it's over here, which is, you know, when I convinced my father, when I think I would have been 15 at the time, 16, convinced him to pay for my private art college because I wanted to work in branding. That was the piece of paper I was given. You've already got a brand. A brand, you know, what's this brand thing you talk about? Brands is what you put on cows, you know, and that was very much being a farmer's daughter, how I was raised to perceive brands. So I just think it's quirky to carry it through, and my family obviously love it as well, to see it just appear subtly, but it's not a logo as such. I don't have a logo. I'm going through an identity crisis at the moment, and intentionally.
So I cut you off in between there. So that's good that you have such a big heritage, like, you know, that a logo that you don't have to think about. It has such a big story and such big powerful branding behind it itself. And so what do you think of all the things you're doing right now, what do you think you're doing really well? One thing that you think, wow, I'm really crushing it.
Well, it would definitely be in attracting awesome projects. So it just happens for you. I think if you put out, you know, the right message to the universe without being too zen, you get back tenfold. But that's something that, really is not an issue for me, which I feel blessed. So on the flip side of that, which I think was one of your questions as well, is like, what do I wish I could do better? Is the exact opposite, is manage my time really, really well. So, you know, making sure that, because I build people's dreams for them as a graphic designer, yet I have my own individual personal dreams and creative dreams. So that getting that balance on time, that while I'm building other people's dreams, you know, you really live through their startup journey with them as like a wingman, and then they're off and running and making, you know, a beautiful life in their business, and then you move on to the next project. So I like to always have my own stuff, like the bin stickers over on the side. So and getting that balance right, because I have no shortage of opportunities and new ones all the time, every day. I never know what's going to happen with my phone. So
So how important is social media for you? Do you use social media for being the Willy Bin stickers, or even your own personal things?
Yeah, well, I do. I manage a lot of social media accounts for other people's businesses as well. So Wheelie Designs in particular, it's quite funny because we've had an online store for 7 years. You take a lot for granted. You also do have to constantly pivot and move with the time. So we would consider ourselves late bloomers with social media. We've been on it for years. Instagram, very much, we've only lifted the lid like probably 3 or 4 months ago, and wow, like you know, I'm deploying it more now into other people's businesses, like anything that has an experience or visual sensation associated with it. So for us with the bin stickers, you know, it's not just about putting the bin on the Instagram, it's about doing a macro close-up of one of the Australian artists' work that's profiled, you know, because these things really are big billboards. And for us with social media, and I think all businesses go through the same, is knowing how to use it, and you're not selling, you're building socialization and relationships, and the spin-off of that is selling. And then also mixing that with the conventional retail buy, discount offer sale. So it's that real balance. And for us, I think it was probably only 3 months ago, like we worked to a very tight business plan. We worked with a business development manager during our startup phase 7 years ago, and we knew we were in a retail store phase. So we've moved on from that phase of like having lots of shop fronts to our website being our core distribution point. Knowing that we'd always only have a short life as a novelty product in retail stores. So now when we look at social media, we actually, we get it because we've done the business planning and strategy work, again, only 3 months ago, revisited who we are, what our drivers are, where we're going, what we want to achieve, and primarily what we stand for as a business and as creative people. So Wheelie, as an example, Ruth, my business partner, she's Scottish. Glasgow School of Art trained,
Wow.
40s, textiles background, not digital, but making sure that the messages that we put on our business social media reflects who we are as business owners, from a common point of view. And that really, when you know who you are and what you stand for, you can have so much fun in business on social media, So, but for myself personally, my personal profile has a mix of friends and clients and business people on it. So as a platform, it's very easy for me to jump on there and, help with a political issue or a business issue, or to promote an event that's coming up and so forth. So I use more my personal brand, for one of a and my care for the environment and my love of gardening, or any of that sort of cool. So,
Wow. Awesome. So, you answered a lot there about social media. So, it's exactly right. It changes, and you have to constantly pivot your business. It's not stagnant at the same time. Every 3 months you are checking your strategies and looking at where we want to be. It's a very, very important thing. And as an artist or as a creative business, not many people get it. No, because I think as a creative person as well, I'm a creative as well, so I know once you get into that making phase, you forget you enter into a completely different world where business does not exist. But I'm glad that you picked it up and you're working on it, and that's a very good message out there. So you mentioned about your business partner Ruth before. So do you have a team to support your ventures, or it's only a solo business? How important it is, do you think, to have a team?
Well, I sit on two sides of the fence with team, and Ruth and I, in my past, I had a head injury probably 2 years ago, so I had to have 18 months rest. So pre that, I was very much a workaholic. So I had quite a large design studio, 120 plates spinning with projects at any one time, a web company, a signage company, and obviously Wheelie sat in sort of that divisional space. And the head injury very, very much changed everything with me, because I had to reset my brain back to zero. And it's changed a lot of my business philosophies as well around team. And obviously, making sure that you've got the right people around you, but also in this world with outsourcing, it's not about your town or even, necessarily this small space. You've got the whole world there to draw on resources. So, and Ruth and I'm also not at the end of my parenting journey, but I'm about to become an empty nester. So I'm only 37 at the moment, for another month. And my daughter has 1 year left of high school. Wow. So I'm about to become a digital nomad. So for me, my philosophy on team is more about the world is your toolbox, really. So depending, like Wheelie as a business model, it's very much designed as a manufacturing model. So in our future, we manufacture now. We have people that obviously work in manufacturing. We'll eventually outsource our manufacturing to another Australian company. We're an Australian-made business, and we're very proud of that. So then Ruth and I completely move into a paperless space, and that's our both shared vision. So we're plotting for an 18-month journey for that. So our version of team at the moment is definitely more around having the right external people in space to make the business model as automated as possible. But then I work in other projects where team is critical. Like you have to have, I'm working on an app project at the moment where like making sure you have the best chief technical officer available is what that fits the actual holistic model of the business at the same time as has the aptitude for the role. So I sit on two sides of the fence with team. So
no, I understand. So whether it's virtual or it's physical, the team is important. You can't like DIY or run everything yourself. And that's the critical point where it's actually a tipping point where your business becomes serious, because you have people who you let people do what they're good at rather than trying to be good at everything.
Yes, but it is at a very double-edged point, because, I mean, Wheelie Designs as an example, I've always worked around coders. I've owned web companies, and we went through maybe 4 websites in the last 7 years, and then we got to the point of mobile responsive hit, and we weren't ready. We'd just done a redevelopment pre that. So, and now, even within the work I'm doing with Department of Oz Industry, when I'm teaching business, I actually do say to people, if you can use Microsoft Word or Excel, you can actually build a website these days. Like it's like, even going back to 2 years ago, it is so easy. It is so intuitive. So I am that combination of empowering people to just give it a go. If you don't even have money and all you've got is time, you can literally have an e-commerce store with your art and craft item available. And that's exciting stuff. But the key is building the website is like 1/5 of the journey to actually being able to earn money while you sleep, you know. So it is it's not the dream, like you said at the start, about just you know, bam, done, look at me sitting back and I'm a .com success, and you know, look at me now. So it's I'm all about empowering and trying to do things, but at the same time, don't waste time. If it's killing you and you're hating trying to learn something, outsource it. There's people all over the world ready that will happily work and feed their family and save the head education. So,
I totally agree. So with all this journey, like now you're going into a nomad, technological nomad and all those things. If you have to start back, what one advice would you give to the young Joe starting the journey again?
Well, the young Joe, what I would say is, this one's really easy for me, is ironically work less and travel more, I think. So being a young mum as well, very, very hungry career-wise at the same time. So I wanted to be all things mum and all things career, which meant I was always last.
Yes.
So it's now with hindsight, and also building businesses and building property portfolios or whatever, you know, you're building stuff, and it is just stuff. Whereas and you get caught in a cycle with clients, and it's not just creative industry where you have to be there and have to be available and you say yes to everything because you want to keep everyone happy and all the, you know, plates juggling. But then the moments that you remember and you hold are the family moments, the experiences, the adventures. So I would definitely, you know, a perfect example is my daughter is one year left at school after this year. And I just said to her, every school holidays, we are out of here. Because it's my last slot as a mum. But when you're in small business or even working for an employer, you can't possibly have 16 or 18 weeks per annum leave, you know, from it. But so that's probably my biggest advice is, you can be building and building and building and growing and hungry. Like entrepreneurs are hungry for change or new or that sort of stuff, but making sure that your work-life balance, because work is, I would definitely put it in the overrated camp. So,
Awesome. So what's the one best advice that you have received in your entire career up till now?
It changes all the time for me depending on where I'm at, like what resonates. So the one that definitely resonates to me at the moment is one I learned from Leela Cosgrove, who's she's online. She has a company called Strategic Anarchy, and I did some sales training with her and her partner Gulliver. Would have been a few years ago now, to try and get over my sales fear, because I can sell in a boardroom environment or people meet me and they buy, but that physical picking up the phone or getting over your shit and just selling from a place of love is what they taught. But the one word that resonated from Leela was that taking massive imperfect action. So for me as a perfectionist, where everything has to be right all the time, and it really can hold you back. And I work with a lot of artists, and especially people like, I could write a blog just about photographers and their personalities because there's some really similar traits, but we all overanalyze our plans and our dreams and our vision. And if you just take some action, like, it will happen for you. And you slowly, one brick at a time, you build what you're doing. So that's something that I really, it obviously resonates with me, but because I'm surrounded by other entrepreneurs and I'm working with my goals, it's, you think really big, but you know what, like, talking about it isn't going to just get you there. It's every the way. And just starting it, and it doesn't matter if it's not perfect. Like, don't hold it back by 6 months or 2 months. If there's a strategy in play, just Yeah.
That's a
Yep.
massive valuable advice for any creatives out there, because even when I started this business, before that I was selling my artworks, and I'm a self-taught creative and doing things, and I'm a perfectionist when it comes to creations.
Yep.
And
As an
and
artist, everyone is.
yeah, and once it started into an entrepreneur thing, I had to just let go of my perfectionism. And
Yep.
yeah, because the website's never perfect. in
No.
in 2 years I have changed it like twice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, something like that. That's very valuable information there. So in this journey, what were the three challenges that you think were like major changing, or something that taught you a lot and
Mm-hmm.
made you sit down and say, okay, now I need to reassess my priorities here?
Yeah.
Probably like you had a health injury recently. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the head injury is obviously pivotal because that when you have your health scare like I had, where I literally couldn't speak, I had a footballer concussion and my
Oh.
speech was affected. So I would have given myself Parkinson's had I kept going the 100 miles an hour that I was. So it was a beautiful gift to be given a health scare at 35 at the time. So I have that privilege of being able to look at and really design my life how I want it to look. And I've spoken before at an event in Sydney on. I'm writing a book. It's called The Journey of a Recovering Workaholic, and sort of going through that process. So I suppose my three biggest challenges have been around your work as a creative, and it could be work even outside of creative space, and what it means versus who you are. And all of the challenges, even in business, have been around litigation or intellectual property theft. Like with Wheelie Designs as an example, when we launched at a trade show in Melbourne to the wholesale market, I know the exact man. I remember what he looks like if I saw him today, who walked into our booth and he grabbed a copy of all of our sales collateral. He had this big cheesy grin. He had no visible lanyard, and literally I think it was 8 weeks to the day, and we were copying in a $2 shop. And literally just like that overnight. And that stuff is horrific when you've invested your livelihood and everything. And then to this day, I suppose we've battled the roll-on effect of that is those stickers fade and they fall off and they degrade, and they only last 3 months. Our product is still UV resistant, 5 years later. So that's been really big. That was a really big part of it, because it's that David versus Goliath thing. And it happened to us literally with Wheelie Designs the first time we had our I did the PR campaign. So obviously being a cool new innovation, we got a lot of media. So as soon as you're in for something like the finance section of Courier Mail, literally that weekend in Brisbane, we had 3 or 4 companies registered derivatives of our URL. And literally we had one guy that copied everything, and he didn't do a good enough job copying, and he turned up at the Brisbane Home Show literally 3 weeks later with an identical version of our business.
My God.
But I think he breached 14 laws around trademark, and a new law at the time that just came in around passing off. So if he had just been a little bit more innovative with his plagiarism, he would have gotten away with it. And in that case, we were able to shut him down. So the biggest challenges for me is always, everyone that has a commonality is learning to pick and choose your battles, and having that ability to confront it and work through it, and also being powerful enough to, I'm not going to bother. This is not worth the time, effort, money, heartache, anger, and learning to just pivot, obviously, and move through that stuff really quick. And coming to that reality in business that there's givers and takers, and not everyone is going to actually always be in the same giving space. So that's something that's very hard as business people. And creators in general are quite giving by nature. Yeah.
This is very important. Like, I'm so glad that we are having this conversation, because I have written this a blog article where I mentioned what to do when you meet all this copyright breaches problem. And I met few artists who don't want to go online because they're worried that someone will snatch their designs and things like that.
Yeah.
And I said, well, this is exactly what you said, that the $2 shop thing was not up to the scratch. It was not worth it, and people would see through it at the end of it. And I think as an artist, you have to have build that resistance and that resilience in you.
Yes.
And have belief and trust in your work, because even if it's a copy, it's not original, so it will never have that same essence. But because you had the right thing, you had the PR, you had the branding going with it, so you could prove it and you could actually fight it out.
Yeah.
And that's what I said in my article as well, that is why you need branding, and that is why you need PR for any creative work out there. That's the only way you can actually fight off any of these nonsense that happens to you.
Yep. And it really is your brand. And what I would say to people, because obviously I work in a branding space, is your brand. It's not your logo. And I can't recall what it came from an ad agency. It's not one of my original thoughts, but someone famous said it, that, you know, your brand is it's what people say about you when you're not in the room, you know, and that's where it can go either way for you. And for us, we then sort of pivoted into becoming, well, we're the you know, we would use words like, you know, imitation versus innovation not in our public space, but in our corporate pitches. And then we proudly declare that we're Australia's original bin sticker company, and we really make sure that people are aware that that's us, instead of saying, hey, they're crap. But honestly, like 5 years on, we're going to write a blog article, and we've got this whole street in this town near where we live, where a friend went and photographed it, and the whole street is just full of these degraded, horrible bin stickers where they must have all went to the $2 shop together and got them. But it's a beautiful story for us and a lesson in business. You know, we learned so much from going through that exercise. So
Thank you for sharing that. Many people will learn from it, I hope. And so what advice would you give to a new creative person starting in this space? Like, what do you just say to them?
There's a few things. My current, I suppose, nugget that I'm giving to all of my friends in business is use Evernote or use some type of online list planning machine. I'm a stationery addict, obviously being a designer, so I've always got like a standard A5 notepad, you know, beautiful Japanese friction pens. But Evernote is my Bible. I keep everything in it, from whether it's my cooking, obviously not work related, through to my planning, obviously like my sauce bottle leads, any of that sort of stuff that I'm working on. It is just like my suppository for information. And if I read an article and it's teaching me something cool about hashtags, it goes into my notepad about social media training. And so when I go to, whether I'm training other people how to do something in business or I need to get re-inspired, I go back to my Evernote, and I've got so much, it's like my brain is now in Evernote. So that's something that I'm very passionate with digital and where it's at. You're holding yourself back if you don't embrace digital list planning and vision boards, all that sort of stuff. So the other one is, I think that I'm passionate about, and advice for other people is to change the confrontation is not a bad thing. So when you're in business and you're an entrepreneur, anything that feels sticky, especially in a business partnership, I work with a lot of people that are bigger investments, or there's more than one owner or committees or boards involved, and everyone's got a personal journey inside of their business journey. So always confronting the things that don't feel right or feel fair, or if you want to change direction, the sooner you confront anything in business and you share it, like A, the weight's lifted, and B, as an organisation or business, you can move through things so quickly instead of starting to build a downward spiral in the passion within the business. Because that once that sort of starts happening, it rolls out into your marketing, your customer service, all that sort of stuff. And then the other one I think is, like, if you're a solo entrepreneur or creative entrepreneur, it's starting to build your communities. Exactly like what you're doing. You know, you're creating an amazing space for people to, you know, resell that, like just another community for them to reach out to their audience. So the physical, putting a static website up, then you got your social over here, but all your other community work, it's not just where you go to sell, it's where you go to learn, to feel inspired, to know that it's okay on your journey. And it's just, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. Like I said, like it's not just creative, it's any business. So even if you're selling tools, like there's online communities out there, or physical communities and organisations that you can join to just for everyone to grow and learn together. So that's my three things.
Awesome. So just to reiterate, what your three things are is, to first to use digital apps for list building, so, you know, for keeping all your to-do list as well as all your information online. And then second thing is to have your own have your own website or have your online presence and build your community, build your tribe. And the third thing is, what did he say? Sorry.
Confrontation.
Confrontation. Yeah. So be transparent, be honest, and build a relationship based on transparency and honesty. And because that's actually emanates from everywhere. You know, everyday things what you do. you can't really put on the mask for a long time nowadays.
Well, and it doesn't matter whether that's in supply chain agreements or with business,
anywhere.
or your employees. You know, if you've got a junior that's not performing or feeling bad, it's like, hey, you haven't been yourself for the last 2 weeks. What's going on? You know, this is what's happening in my life. Oh my God, take a week off and see the flip side. Go and be happy. You know, it's just simply being aware of your surroundings, but don't hold it in, and because it holds you back in business tenfold.
Awesome. Awesome, Joe. So it was great talking to you, and we learned a lot of things. We wish you all the best for all your future goals.
Thank you.
And we wish to see you around.
Yep.
And love to see more about what's happening with your wheelie beans and how you go into a nomad technology person.
Yep.
Yeah,
I'll
cool.
follow you online and keep an eye on your website too. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Have a
Bye.
good day. Bye.